Hi, I'm Alex. Welcome to our Terra Inaka life. Up in the mountains of central Japan is this charming little place that we recently bought. The middle of the main house is most likely over 100 years old. And there's so much history here that we're learning something new about this land and the buildings pretty much every day. We moved here a couple of months ago after a fairly quick process buying the house. Everything happened kind of like it was fate. And we expected that finding a place would take a couple of years, and we knew this place from before, but it suddenly became available pretty much as soon as we reached out to a not-for-profit organization about moving here. Pretty crazy. On this channel, I'll be making videos about our Inaka life in the country here, repair and DIY work on the house and yard, and we have a lot to do, so subscribe and keep up with our journey, and I'll be posting videos as often as I can between the millions of jobs that keep popping up. The location here is beautiful. There's mountains all around, nature, animals, constant sound of running water. The house is in Aichi Prefecture, in a city called Shinshiro. It's located basically in the middle between Tokyo and Osaka. And like a lot of houses in the country here and in Japan, it came with land. In this case, a fair bit of land. And most of that land is on the side of a mountain. But, you know, it's half covered with forest as well. But we do have a little bit of flat land to use. Shinshiro literally means new castle, which is pretty cool. It's quite easy to get to this area. The popular Tokaido Shinkansen stops at Toyohashi, which is about an hour's drive away. Pretty much everyone's going on that Shinkansen line. But there's also a quaint little local train that stops about 10 minutes from our house that you can catch from Toyohashi Station. A lot of people coming to Japan for a holiday pass through this area, going from Tokyo to Osaka or Kyoto and back. So this place is just waiting to be explored more. This area is a bit more working class than the big cities, and the people here are quite down to earth. They live their lives close to nature, and often it's why they stayed in this area or moved here. Most of Shinshiro is forest, and if you look at the satellite view, you can pretty much see that. But even though it can feel really deep in the mountains sometimes, in a good way, you're never really too far from things that you need, like food or a hardware shop. Where we live is in a small little mountain village, and it's tucked away in a valley a short drive from the train station. It's as isolated as we could want without it being a hassle. It's a really amazing place. From our house, we can always hear running water in the creek nearby. There's birdsong everywhere, and we have a famously large population of deer and Japanese kamoshka. There's no street view for our house, and the terrain on Google Earth is kind of off, but you get the idea if you have a look. This is a map of Japan, of course, and if I just draw on this map for a second here, you can see Tokyo is down there, and Osaka is there, and Nagoya is here, and we're basically around here somewhere. So we're pretty much in the middle of everything. So if we zoom in a little bit, you can see again how we have Osaka and Kyoto here, which, you know, everyone goes to. We have Tokyo here that everyone goes to, and we are pretty much right here, so it really is just in the middle. If we zoom in some more, we come down, we're getting closer to our valley here now. So Toyohashi, the city nearby that has the Shinkansen stop, that's down here, and the Tokaido Shinkansen basically runs through this way, basically. Like it basically goes straight past our area because the little local train comes up this way into Shinshiro City here, and our house is basically around this area here. So we're not that far from the Shinkansen, even though we live in a place that looks really deep in the mountains. If I come a bit closer in, you'll start to see how everything is really green because Shinshiro is mostly forest. And if I go down a bit more, this here is basically our local area, and you can see that Atera Nanataki is here, the famous waterfalls. The little local train comes up like this, and there's a train station here. And the Atera Valley that we live in is right here. It's this little pocket nested in the valley here. And I'll see if I can do this without my computer exploding or anything. You've probably got some idea now, at a very slow frame rate, of what the terrain looks like. But we're in this little valley with some big mountains on either side, and it's very picturesque. Nearby, we have some really amazing sightseeing spots. We're really lucky, to be honest. One of the major ones is Mount Horaiji, or Horaiji-san. It's a holy mountain that has been used for Buddhist enlightenment and prayer since about the year 700. The mountain has an incredible atmosphere, and if you choose to walk up the 1,300-ish steps that are mostly hand-carved, that pilgrims have walked up for about 1,000 plus years, you're sure to get some kind of self-realization on the way up there. It's got a lot of deep history with different types of temples, and the land even has a rule that you can't kill anything there because it is such a holy place. And it's kind of weird that people aren't going there more often now, because everyone on their way historically between Tokyo and Kyoto used to go there. And it's in famous old artwork. It's kind of interesting that it's not as big as it should be anymore. We have a lot of waterfalls and water around here. It's quite famous. And down the road from us is Atera Nanataki. It's one of Japan's top 100 waterfalls, where the water is really clear and really blue, pretty crystal clear. And it runs down the Atera River and drops down 7 waterfalls, and that same river runs past our house eventually. But that waterfall is a holy place that's been known as a power spot for a very long time. The legendary Abe no Seimei, he was kind of like the Japanese version of Merlin in some ways. He found the place over about 1,000 years ago and basically powered up his skills there. And he may or may not have actually started the village that we live in too, which, you know, is a legend, but it's pretty cool. And there's quite a few spots around here to see, and we'll show them to you later on in the videos as each season changes and as we travel around. So yeah, make sure to subscribe. The sun rises really late. Because we're on the, I guess, afternoon or evening side of the valley, it was pretty hard to wake up in the morning during winter. You can see all, the houses on the other side, they're, nice and bright, but everyone on my side just wakes up pretty late. So this is our front yard, and you can see our mailbox there. It's pretty nice. This is all stuff that was basically put here, and it was all decorated by the husband of the couple that ran a cafe here before. And you can see that some of it's really sort of unique, but at the same time classic Japanese design. It's got a very artistic touch to it. There's even the origami crane in the concrete. We don't actually know who did that, but it probably was him. And so the entrance there is pretty famous because it was a cafe and restaurant. Lots of people know about it. So walking down the side of the house here, this yakisugi that you can see, this kind of Japanese special paneling, it's actually only half yakisugi and it's kind of falling off, so I need to change that. And with these little washi fake windows that were put there, the washi paper is sort of biodegrading, so I need to replace that. Because it was a few months between when the cafe stopped and when we moved in. This door has fly screens, which is nice, and being Australian, I want fly screens on everything, so the little nice balcony you see here, we're going to be putting fly screens on that. Something that basically it makes an enclosure of the whole space so that you could sit there even in summer and just relax and look out over that view. And inside here you can see the iori, and looking down into the main room, it was a restaurant and a cafe, so it has a lot of space and a lot of furniture and things like that set up for it. And you'll see more of this as I make more videos. This house before we moved in was a cafe and a restaurant, but before the cafe moved here, it was actually in another town. And the husband of the couple that was running that, he would come to this house every Tuesday, something like that, over a number of years to basically renovate this place and add all the decoration that made it so famous. We went to that cafe a lot. It was our favorite cafe every time we visited this area from Tokyo. And one time we were able to get a lift up to see this house here in the middle of the renovations. And the outside was really different, but the inside was nearly the same as it is now. He'd, by that point, added the little custom toilet building, the outdoor bath, which at the moment is not there anymore. He added the decoration inside and the iori, the little fire pit that's in Japanese houses. Most of that stuff was here, but since that time, it's changed quite a bit on the outside, and it got very, very popular because of his styling. So there'll be more about that story later on, but because the wife wasn't wanting to run the cafe anymore by herself, the opportunity came up, and so we were able to buy this house. An unfortunate reality of buying property in the countryside in Japan, in the Inaka, is problems from land that's designated as farmland. This house came with something like 8,500 square meters of land, but it's mostly forest, and it doesn't have a lot of flat or very usable farming land. And regardless, and even after some negotiation, a lot of the land here was not actually updated before we bought it. And it was supposed to be updated before we bought it. It means the abandoned farmland that was registered 100 years ago technically needs to be used as farmland now, even if the forest took it back over 50 years ago or earlier. The difficulty of buying property with farmland for non-farmers is a pretty common topic, and so far we've only really avoided problems because of the difficulty of actually getting something from farming here. The land hasn't been used to actively make a profit for a while, so it kind of set a precedent from that. The slopes are steep, and there's animals that eat basically all the crops that you could grow, except for some. The land isn't good for earthwork, and there's not enough hours of sunlight in some places for a lot of crops. Because we don't have any farming experience, we basically had to commit to using the farm for farming activity, and we will. And we have ume plum, chestnuts, kiwi tree, some others. And we also have a lot of this special tree that's used in religious ways here, but we really want to clear some of that out, plant some herbs and vegetables, things like that. Put a big net around it so that the animals can't eat it. The biggest challenge around here is basically controlling those animals. We have a lot of deer and inoshishi, the wild boar. We have the Japanese sero, the kamoshka, that kind of has a godly image, and it was rare, and I can tell you that it is not rare now. We have monkeys as well. Basically, there's a bunch of things that animals love to eat that we can eat. And it's why certain plants are popular around here, because the animals just don't like them. And the animals are kept out from a lot of people's farms by really big nets. On this channel, we'll basically bring you along for our journey as we renovate and work on the house and look after the land here, and we'll show you bits and pieces of life in the mountains while we're at it. We plan on doing DIY as much as we can as well, so we'll show you how we do it and hopefully get some tips and give some tips along the way as we do that. We do want to do DIY as much as we can, and of course, depending on money, we'll be managing exactly what we choose to do, because there's some big projects that we might do, including almost a rebuild of one of the buildings here, and we'll be setting things up for the Airbnb style accommodation that we'll be doing, and maybe we'll be having a cafe as well. It's one of those things where we're always finding new things to do, new things to add to our list of stuff that we have to do, and it means that there's hopefully a lot of interesting stuff to see there. For example, we get a bunch of rain and a rock wall falls down, which means I then have to learn how to build a rock wall. It's hopefully something that you'll enjoy, because we're enjoying it a bit. It's sometimes overwhelming, but we're getting there. So if you subscribe, you'll kind of come on that journey with us, and hopefully you'll find it interesting.